You get 3 enhancement options here. High resolution gives you full native 4K resolution but runs around 30 FPS. Normal gives you 1440p resolution with a consistent 60 FPS. High frame rate does 1080p also at 60 FPS but negates potential frame drops if they come up. I mostly play on normal and didn't think twice about switching because for me, it's the best balance. It looks great and maintains high FPS, so there's really no need to drop the visual quality further for the high frame rate mode. Like a Dragon's Yokohama is a wonderfully detailed setting and the best use of the Yakuza series' Dragon engine, which was used in Kiwami 2, Yakuza 6, and Judgment. It looks and runs great. Dirt 5 also presents 3 enhancement options. Image quality aims for full 4K while using dynamic resolution to try to maintain 60 FPS. But it seemed to me that there were some frame drops when particle effects kicked up while a bunch of cars were on screen. Frame rate mode also uses dynamic resolution but lacks some visual flair, reducing effects like shadow quality to maintain a more consistent 60 FPS. If you have a 120Hz display and set the system output to 120Hz, Dirt 5 will offer the 120Hz option. As a PC gamer who's been on high refresh rate monitors for quite some time, it's a real treat to see a console game hit 120 FPS. Sure, the graphical quality takes a hit, but in return the game moves buttery smooth. The visual compromises are quite apparent to me, but I wouldn't say it makes the game look bad. Overall though, I do feel image quality is the best option here. Both Yakuza Like a Dragon and Dirt 5 are cross-gen games, so while they might not blow you away with the next-gen wow factor, there are measurable graphical improvements over what we'd expect from the Xbox One X. With Gears Tactics, it keeps things simple. On the Xbox Series X, the game runs at 4K 60 FPS. No options or compromises necessary. This is in contrast to the Xbox One X, where you have the option for 4K 30 FPS with quality mode and 1440p 60 FPS with performance mode. The bump in frame rate is nice, but this being a turn-based strategy game doesn't have that much of an effect on the experience. Certainly not as much as it would on a racing game such as Dirt 5 or a shooter like Gears 5. So with Gears 5, you get a new option with the Xbox Series X, 120 FPS in multiplayer. Of course, this only matters if your display can do 120Hz, 4K or otherwise, and from what I can tell, the jump in frame rate is a great touch to make the action noticeably smoother. The bump won't affect the single-player campaign, though it will run a dynamic 4K at 60 FPS like the One X, but with a few perks like improved anisotropic filtering and more consistent performance and image quality due to the stronger hardware. Performance in backwards compatible games really depends on how they're built, what their technical limitations are, and whether or not they've been updated with Series X optimizations. I mentioned this in my first preview that Final Fantasy XV, for example, runs at a much more consistent FPS on Series X when set to its performance mode, whereas on the One X, you'll experience some noticeable frame drops. However, using the higher quality mode still caps the game at 30 FPS on both systems, since the game is built with that frame cap when running high fidelity modes. On that note, other games that cap the frame rate at 60 FPS will be able to actually hit that high mark and or maintain it more consistently than the Xbox One, as made evident in games such as Monster Hunter World, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, No Man's Sky, and plenty more. But a game like The Outer Worlds, which caps at 30 FPS and doesn't have graphics options, will still run at 30 FPS on either system. More recently, I cracked into Doom Eternal. The game maintains consistent performance with 60 FPS, but runs a dynamic resolution that maxes out at 1800p on the Xbox One X, and turns it down when things get hectic. On the Xbox Series X, it's able to keep resolution at or closer to 1800p since the hardware is powerful enough to do this and still hit 60 FPS. So in short, if a game uses dynamic resolution or allows higher FPS, you'll get improvements by virtue of the more powerful Series X hardware, even if there aren't Series X optimizations. If a game is bound by certain technical limitations, such as a 30 FPS cap or a fixed resolution, the game will have to adhere to that accordingly. It just depends on how the game is built. Of course, it's possible that some games could also get updates for Series X optimizations in the future, so keep in mind that these conditions can change. One such case is Destiny 2, which caps at 30 FPS for now, but will improve to 60 FPS when its next-gen update rolls around.